Analyze the causes and effects of the Battle of Leipzig, 1813. Of course, this is one of the lead numbers about Napoleon Bonaparte. So in this kind of arrangement, you need to know the legacy of a man called Napoleon Bonaparte. So we are saying the Battle of Leipzig, 1813, was also referred to as the Battle of All Nations. It was the fourth coalition in which Napoleon I engaged in war with the Allies. It occurred after the Moscow campaign of 1812 and the failure of the peace proposal. So we are realizing that the Battle of Leipzig was also referred to as the Battle of Nations. It is said nations joined hands together to fight against Napoleon Bonaparte. I can tell you, questions are not going to come direct. Questions are going to be twisted, but you need to apply what you studied to the what? To the question. I'm emphasizing this as our message from Kasoma, Faruq of Uganda, where we say, no one is coming. No one is what? Coming. The government is busy. Your family is busy. Even your friends are what? Are busy. So it's upon you to liberate yourself. So we need to know the causes of the Battle of Leipzig. Are we together? What caused the Battle of Leipzig? Number one, Napoleon's overwhelming ambition was a threat to the European powers. So it is said Napoleon had what you call overwhelming ambition. So this made other European powers not happy with Napoleon. You remember in his famous speech he said, a normal man sleeps for only 2 hours, a woman 4 hours, and a fool 8 hours. So we are realizing Napoleon had what you call overwhelming ambition. It is this that threatened the powers, especially Britain. They had to ally together to fight against Napoleon Bonaparte. And this led to the Battle of Leipzig. You must connect the points to the question. Then the growing spirit of nationalism in Europe. It is said nationalism is love for one's country. Because by this time Napoleon and France had conquered so many countries. France had influence in Italian states. France had influence in Austria. So by this time we are realizing nationalism in Europe, love for one's country, made the smaller states to rise up against Napoleon Bonaparte. What they did, they had to join Britain to fight against Napoleon, and this led to the Battle of Leipzig. Then the military suffering experienced in the Moscow campaign of 1812. It is said at one time, you remember, Napoleon introduced the continental system where he refused the countries to trade with what? With Britain. But what happened? It is said Russia continued to trade with Britain. Napoleon, under the Berlin and Milan decree, he said, you trade with Britain, I attack you. Now what happened? By this time, Napoleon had to attack Russia in Moscow. This was the Moscow campaign of 1812. He organized around over 600,000 soldiers to go and attack Russia in Moscow. But what happened? When the Russians heard that Napoleon is coming, they deserted the city. They took all the food. They poisoned the water. Napoleon's soldiers came, they started drinking water, and there was poison. Many of them had to die. Others were not used to winter. Many of them had to die. Those who survived had to pass via river Naima, and many of them had to fall in the river. And by this time, Napoleon was defeated in the Moscow campaign of 1812. When Napoleon was defeated in Moscow, this made the countries to feel confident that too they can defeat Napoleon Bonaparte. And in this kind of arrangement, we are saying the military suffering Napoleon experienced in the Moscow campaign led to the Battle of Leipzig, because countries believed that they were going to defeat Napoleon Bonaparte. Then, the defeat of France in the Peninsular War, 1808 to 1811. What happened in the Peninsular War? It is said Portugal continued to trade with Britain. Napoleon waged the war against what? Portugal. But in this kind of arrangement, we are realizing Napoleon passed in Spain to go and attack what? Portugal. He was like successful at one time in Portugal, but when he was going back, passing through Spain, he realized the king of Spain was very weak. He said, I'm overthrowing the king of where? Of Spain. This annoyed the people of Spain. They allied with Portugal, and finally they defeated Napoleon Bonaparte. So it is this kind of defeat that made the powers to believe that they were also going to defeat Napoleon Bonaparte, and this gave them courage and finally led to the Battle of Leipzig. Then the desire to end the continental system. Let me tell you, the continental system which was declared by Napoleon, where he refused the countries to trade with what? With Britain. What happened in the continental system? I can say the traders had to suffer. There was what you call economic crisis, because they were depending on Britain to survive. But because they were not allowed to trade with Britain, they were affected economically. It is this that made many traders in France and the whole of Europe to rise up against Napoleon Bonaparte. And this made them to support countries to fight against Napoleon in the Battle of Leipzig. And finally, this led to the battle. Then the supremacy of Britain made her to mobilize against France. It is said in terms of navy, Britain was stronger than France. It is this that made Britain to mobilize other countries to fight against France, because the major competition for supremacy was between France and what? And Britain. So the supremacy of Britain led to the Battle of Leipzig, where Britain had to mobilize forces from different countries to fight against France, and this led to the Battle of Leipzig. Then the imprisonment of the Pope, 1809. I can say the Pope Pius VII was imprisoned because he continued to trade with what? With Britain. By the way, Napoleon made a record, is the only man in this world who was ever imprisoned the Pope. By this time, when he imprisoned the Pope, this made many Catholics in France, even in the whole of Europe, to rise up against Napoleon Bonaparte. That's why they supported many countries to fight against Napoleon in the Battle of Leipzig. Another one, we are realizing the failure of the peaceful means to end the Napoleonic Wars. It is said countries at one time wanted to negotiate with Napoleon, but of course peaceful means did what? Fail. As the peaceful means failed, it is this that led to the Battle of Leipzig, where I can say, as peaceful means failed, they had to resort to the battle. Another one, the influence of Metternich, that had the mobilization teams against Napoleon. It is said the influence of Metternich from Austria. This man was rising up against Napoleon. He mobilized the countries to rise up against Napoleon Bonaparte. It's no wonder that after the defeat of Napoleon, they had to sit in the Vienna settlement. So in this kind of arrangement, the influence of Metternich led to the Battle of Leipzig. Another one, the desire by Napoleon I to consolidate his rule in Europe. It is said Napoleon I wanted to consolidate his rule in Europe. That's why even he refused the countries to trade with what? With Britain. Because the major competition in terms of supremacy was between France and Britain. It is this that annoyed Britain. Britain had to call upon countries to join hands together to fight against Napoleon, and this led to the Battle of Leipzig. Another one, Napoleon's hatred for monarchism. It is said Napoleon had great hatred for monarchism. He didn't want countries to be led by the what? By the king. Now what happened? This annoyed the countries that were believing in monarchism. What they did, they joined hands together to fight against Napoleon in the Battle of LEIPZIG. Another key aspect in this kind of arrangement, Napoleon I rejected the Frankfurt peace proposal, where we are saying, as Napoleon rejected the Frankfurt peace proposal. What's all about this? As he rejected the Frankfurt peace proposal, where countries were willing to negotiate with Napoleon to end the wars, but Napoleon rejected the peace proposal. Now what happened? Nations had to join hands together to fight against Napoleon in the Battle of what? LEIPZIG. I can tell you, a man who had the power, a man who had everything, finally came to an end. A man who said everything is possible, only the word impossible was written by fools in the books of dictionary. Finally came to an end.